Okay, today I want to talk to you about how you can be a resilient person, how you can bounce back heroically from adversity, how you can grow from adversity. I heard the term post-traumatic growth. I like that term very much. Post-traumatic growth. There are people who are so resilient that they use everything that happens to them, events that are out of their control, traumatic events, and turn it around. What's a traumatic event? Well, we know. Loss, chas v'shalom, the death of a loved one. Financial difficulties, difficulties with a child, loss of a job, right? Other things that are out of our control. How do you deal with it? We're going to give you tips. Today we're going to load you up with all kinds of tips, psychological tips, spiritual tips, to be able to deal with adversity. Adversity comes, we don't have control over a lot of what happens in life, but we're going to focus on what we do have control over. We're going to see that the people that cope best are people that don't waste time worrying or trying to use their energy on things that they can't change, and things that are out of their control. So let's look at what are the strategies that work. We all need strategies, okay? You cannot deal with adversity just off the cuff. You have to have a plan. You have to have a way of dealing with it. If you've lost a job, if you've lost a relationship, we have to have a way. And the way that works for you may not be the way that will work for your friend, and vice versa. There are cultural differences in the way people deal with adversity. There are individual differences as well. So, marital problems, these types of things require the understanding, first of all, that we're not going to get into blame, right? This is Aleph. This is one of the first things that we learn from Rabbi Shalom Arush. It's explained in all of his books on Emunah that we don't blame the other person, we don't blame ourselves. A situation or event happened. It happened. Why? Because Hashem made it happen. And our job is to deal with it, to not only deal with it, but to grow from it. And it's possible to grow if a person can develop the confidence of knowing that you can grow from everything, no matter how difficult it is. And we can reduce the pain. There is, of course, going to be pain, emotional pain. There's going to be some sadness as well. All right? But we can still grow. We can grow from these things. First thing we have to understand is that when something happens, a tragedy hits, that it's a valid thing. You're struggling with a real thing. This isn't a fantasy. We're talking about a real thing that happened to you or a loved one. It's a valid thing. It's going to cause emotional pain. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle. So we have to acknowledge that this is a real thing. This is not a small thing that we're dealing with here. It's something that requires a lot of effort. It has to be with this ability to be resilient and have emunah in God. It requires a lot of effort. It has to be cultivated. This doesn't come naturally. Right? It's not something that you can just rely on to all of a sudden come to the surface of your mind and start helping you out. We have to realize this is a valid nisayon, a valid test that's coming from God that we have to deal with. It might be something that you've been struggling with for a long time already. And you know what? It doesn't really matter. We have to say, you know what? Even if it's a prolonged type of trauma, what's called post-traumatic stress syndrome, which can be extended sometimes over years. If you're dealing with a reaction to an event that's been going on for a long time, or you're dealing with a personality trait that you want to change in yourself, some type of issue within you that has to be worked on, and you've been working on it a long time, and it still keeps coming back, and it keeps coming back, and it's haunting you, it's still a valid fight. It's a valid struggle. Don't blame yourself. Don't say, oh, I'm lazy, or I gave up, I didn't try hard enough, or someone else has the same problem as me, and they're coping so much better. Don't do that. Resilient people, healthy people do not do that. That person's struggle has absolutely nothing to do with your struggle. Your struggle is something between you and you and you and the Creator, and has nothing to do with another person's struggle. It might look like it's the same struggle, but it's not. It may look the same, but it's very, very different. Because everybody is on his own track. Everybody has his own destiny. And the tests are unique to you. So, realize you're dealing with something serious. You're dealing with something legitimate. And realize, number two, how you've dealt with trauma in the past. How you've dealt with adversity in a good way in the past. Very important to go back and remember, how did I deal with, what are the three most difficult, tough things that ever happened to you in your life? And think about how did you deal with that? How did you get through those things? What did you say to yourself? You know, who did you reach out to somebody? Did you get support for yourself? If you ask yourself the question, what did I do to cope with the adversities that I had in the past? You're going to start to see that you did some of these things. You developed some type of a support network for yourself. You might have not told everybody, okay, because it's not everybody's business. But you had probably at least one or a few people that you knew cared about you, and you could share things with, and you could bounce ideas off, who were really helpful to you in that situation. So go over in your mind and realize the tough times that you've had, how did you get through them? Another third thing that people do is that when an adverse situation strikes, they're proactive. They don't sit back and wait, to just see if the situation is going to work itself out. They are proactive. They go out. They're looking to fix the situation, looking to find a solution to the situation. Again, not everything is in your control. So don't waste time if you see that something isn't working, if you don't have control over certain aspects of this problem. Go and pay attention to those things. Find the things that you can change. Work with people, work with your spiritual tools, and find the things that you can change in that situation. Ask yourself, what am I going to do about this? Be proactive. How am I going to fight this? How am I going to work with this? Look at this as a challenge, not as something that's being done to you, but try to look at it as something that's being done for you, even though it may not be easy to look at it that way initially. But if you can begin to look at it as a challenge, that something is being done for you to help you grow, to help you to grow stronger, you're going to start to see that this challenge that you have, if you meet it, if you work on it proactively, you'll be able to grow stronger. You'll be able to become more resilient than the average person. As a result of the situation that you're being dealt by the Creator, you'll be able to be more functional and more resilient and more able to master similar types of situations that may come up in your life more than the average person, certainly more than you were before you were able to given this challenge. And that's a confidence builder. Another thing you have to know is that the situation that you've been given, the challenge, is not something that is probably going to go away overnight. So don't even go there. Don't expect that this is going to change overnight. It probably has to go on for a while, and you have to learn to accept that. You have to learn to realize people that are resilient, the resilient personality that's been studied extensively now by psychologists. This is a person who says, okay, we're going to be in the woods for a while. We're going to be in a challenging situation for a while. This situation is according to the laws of nature, al pi derech hateva, unless Hashem makes a miracle. All right, this is going to be a tough time. But we're going to get through it together. We're going to huddle together. We're going to put our resources together. We're going to get the support we need. We're going to get the advice we need. Sometimes you don't necessarily need a therapist, but you may need a coach. You may need somebody who has some experience here, psychological tools, tools you can use, mind tools, Amuna tools that you could use to get through it in the best possible way. So be proactive. Look for solutions. Okay. Another thing is, when you're going to look for these solutions, when you're going out there, you got to know what you can do and what you can't do. That means you got to know your strengths. You have to know yourself. You have to be aware. Do you have a great personality? Okay, you got to go use that personality. Use your charm. Use whatever you've got. You're smart. Use your intelligence. You know a lot of people. You have friends. You have contacts. Use those contacts. Think what your strategy is based upon your strengths, your individual strengths, your God-given abilities. Okay? So you might have certain talents. You might have the ability to do a certain work ethic that can work for you. Put your resources, know your resources, use your resources. Another thing that people do that are very resilient, as I've been saying, is they don't try to do it alone. They go out, they find other people, they look for support, at least some people that can help them. Very important. Another thing that we have to do when adversity hits, we have to be compassionate with ourselves. You have to be forgiving. There's no room here for blame. The adverse condition that you might find yourself in, or a loved one in, is enough. It's stressful enough. We don't have to add on to it by a lack of compassion towards ourselves. A lack of sympathy for what you're going through makes absolutely no sense. Be sympathetic with yourself. Can be compassionate with yourself. Ask yourself, again, how has adversity in the past been strengthening to you? How has it helped you? Yeah? See failure as a form of feedback. Right? Instead of thinking that you did something and failed, look at, or that an event out of your control is happening. Don't see it as a failure. See it as, okay, it didn't work out, it's a setback, but it's really a form of feedback that you're getting from Hashem to give you some hints to lead you in a better direction, a different direction, or to modify what you're doing. Everything is feedback. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. Learning to look at that in a positive way makes a huge amount of difference. It saves psychic energy. You don't use up your energy depleting yourself, and you have more energy left to problem solve, to find your resources, to access your resources, use whatever resources you have, your own personal resources, the resources in your environment, in your family, in your close relatives, friends. You have more energy to look at the challenge and to say, I'm going to find a solution, we're going to grow from this one way or another. Everyone needs their own personal strategy. Remember that it is a normal thing. It's a normal thing for things to happen, right? Good things happen to bad people. Bad things, in quotes, happen to good people. But resilience is also natural. It's natural for human beings to bounce back, to use difficulties and problems in order to get stronger. Hashem gives us problems because he knows we need problems. We need problems in order to grow stronger. A person who has goals and has a desire to reach those goals will use the natural resiliency that he has to be able to overcome the obstacles. Most people that went through the Holocaust rebuilt their lives. They went through tragedy, terrible, terrible adversity and loss, and yet they rebuilt themselves. They started again. Okay? They renewed their commitment to their goals, or they kept those goals alive in their mind, even at the time when things were most difficult. So we need solid goals. You need to have real solid goals and a strong desire. You have to work on strengthening your desire to reach the goals and the purpose that you see for your life. Everybody has a purpose. It's a spirit. There's a spiritual purpose. There's a purpose that we all have in common. There's individual purposes as well. Commitment is important. Commitment to your relationships. Commitment to your purpose. Commitment to your goals. That sense of commitment is what's going to get you up and out of the bed in the morning, despite the fact that you're going through a very tough time. Commitment. Commitment to the people who Hashem put under your care, who made you responsible for. Commitment to them can get you moving, keep you going. Commitment to your Creator can get you going, can fire you, can keep you searching and looking for solutions, even in a situation where someone else might be giving up, because he doesn't have your commitment. He doesn't have your drive. He doesn't have your reasons to continue. So he gives up. But if you have a commitment, if you have goals, you won't do that. You have to have those connections. You can't do it alone. You can't shoulder the burden of a sick child, or a child who's having difficulty in school, or a severe financial stress, or a medical illness in yourself or someone in the family. You can't deal with these things by yourself. You have to turn to people that you know care about you, people who you can trust, who you can talk to. Close family, relatives, neighbors, friends, rabbis, spiritual guides, and renew those connections. You have to, as you're functioning, you have to remind yourself of what you can do. That no matter how small it might be, ask yourself, what can I do now? What can I do today to get through this? To make this a little bit better. Even if it's only one thing that you can do today, only one thing you can do right now, what is it? You know? And don't, again, compare yourself to other people. He's doing more. I should be doing more. Don't waste time. Another tip, thought awareness. You have to have an awareness of your thoughts. And you have to have an awareness of how you're speaking to yourself. Look for the opportunity to discover what you're talking to yourself, what you're saying to yourself. A lot of times there's basically a number of things that people do. One is they make it too pervasive, right? So a person might say, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do about anything. That's too pervasive. You have to take that thought and make it, there's nothing I can do about this aspect of it, right? There's nothing but there may be other things I can do about other things. And just don't waste time with that. Go and do those other things right away. The whole idea here is to not get paralyzed about what's going on, what's happening. Instead of looking at it as a paralyzing event, look at it as a challenge. Something that can enable you to grow and get stronger and more confident. And the more things that we master like this, the more confident we get, so that when challenges come in the future, we can deal with them as well. We just reach into all of the mind tools that we have established and developed for ourselves, and we use them again and again as many times as we need to. Personal control. Okay? I want to talk to you a little bit now about what we call self-talk. Positive self-talk. How we explain, it's sort of an explanatory way of thinking, of talking to yourself and encouraging yourself when you're in such a difficult situation. First thing you have to understand is we have to tell ourselves this is not a permanent situation. Okay? Nothing is permanent. Everything, has its time, its place. You've been through difficult things. You've managed to get to where you are now. This idea of permanence has to be challenged, right? Look at it as a temporary thing, not a permanent thing. Number two, it's not a pervasive thing. It's a limited thing. It doesn't affect every aspect of your life. It doesn't have to take away from your self-esteem, for example. Just because adversity strikes doesn't mean that a person has to think any less of himself than he thought before adversity struck. You're still worth just as much as you were before. And it's important to hold on to self-esteem because you need all the self-esteem and all the confidence that you can muster up to be able to cope and grow from this situation. So don't personalize what's happening to you. Look at it as an event. It's a happening. It's something that you would have preferred not to happen, but it did. It happened, and you're going to cope with it. You're going to deal with it, but don't blame yourself. Don't personalize it. Don't blame others as well. That might be hard, especially in a situation where other people actually do something to hurt you, to insult you, to cause you harm or loss. It may be very hard to not blame them. But to the extent that you can not do that, you will have much more energy, you'll have much more spirituality, you'll have much more energy to keep going and get to a quicker resolution. Get to a quicker resolution and solution. By not blaming, we elevate ourselves. We strengthen ourselves and say, okay, this happened because it came from above, and I'm not going to fall into that blame game. I'm going to use this challenge to be able to deal with it in the right way, in a Torah-based way. And by knowing that you're doing it the right way, it gives you extra self-esteem. Because you know that you're not cutting corners. You're not cheating, so to speak. You're not finding fault and blaming and criticizing, because you know that those things are not going to make it any better. They're not going to improve the situation even one bit. To blame and criticize and find fault and judge people poorly. Okay? That's Hashem's job. If somebody else did something wrong, they'll pay for it. They'll pay for it. There's a reckoning. But don't use up your strength. Don't use up your energy. Don't diminish or dilute your emunah. Don't dilute your faith by getting into that stuff. Go forward, positive, using all the tools that we're mentioning here today, and have a positive image of what can happen, of what can actually come as a result of this adverse situation. Keep your eye on positivity all the time. You're not being overly positive. You're not denying that this is tough. You're not denying that it's painful. But you'll have much less pain. You'll have much less suffering if you use the tools that you have. Talk to Hashem. Pray to Hashem. Learning Torah is a wonderful antidote. It's a wonderful antidote to pain and to getting into negative thinking and wasting thoughts on things that are not going to help you in the situation. You don't have to be able to just sit with any Torah book and look at a few lines and just appreciate them, value them, and be happy that you have, be grateful that you have this. Look at a few lines of wisdom before you, and you think about it, and you ask yourself, how can I apply this? How can I use this? Right? And that in itself puts a distance between you and that big black problem. Right? Helps you to move towards your goals. You might have a goal to learn more Torah. That's a goal in itself that you're fulfilling by sitting down with a Torah book to learn or a little bit of Tehillim to learn. You're not wasting your time. So, it's not permanent, it's not pervasive, it's not personal, it's something that's happening to you. You have the power. God gives you the power of free choice, and you can exercise your power of free choice by deciding what meanings you want to put onto this event. The event itself is an event. It's a loss, God forbid. It's an illness. Whatever it might be. It's a tragedy even. But we, with Emunah, people with belief, we look at it and we say, we don't really know all of what this means. We know how it makes us feel as a human being, but we don't know what this means. All we know deep down is that it means that something about it is meant to be good. That because it's happening from the Creator, something, of course, about it is positive. That there's a positive intention that the Creator puts into every event, everything that happens in the world. And so this too must be somehow for the best. It may not make us feel all better all at once. And we know, again, it's not going to go away overnight, most likely, but it reduces the stress, it reduces the worries, that awareness, and then it becomes a trauma that can lead to growth. And you can have that post-traumatic growth, as we said before, rather than a post-traumatic syndrome or crisis that just keeps going in on and on and on and on. So this is what resilience is all about. Resilience is a natural human ability. There's tremendous resilience in people, much more than they know, much more than they are told by forces in society that want you to believe that really you don't have much resilience, and if bad things happen, wow, that could be, that could permanently damage you, that's going, the rest of the life is ruined, and now, oh my God, you have this diagnosis, medicine is guilty of this, psychology is guilty of this. It's not the right way to look at things. A person with Emunah, a person with faith, looks at situations and says, it's coming from God. I don't really understand it. I need strength and prayer and consultation with others, connections with others to help me get through it. But I don't really know what this means, and I'm going to use it, I'm going to work with it, and somehow it's going to be okay. Somehow it's going to work out. It's going to be good. So you think good, and it is good. You think good, and you draw to yourself and to the situation as a whole more positive spiritual entities, more positive spiritual forces will come to the situation. Again, doesn't matter what it is. We have to use the tools that we have, psychological tools, spiritual tools, and Hashem should help you. Hashem should be with you, and you should be able to grow and progress and be a model to your children and to your friends and family. You should be a good. You should be a good person. I'm sure you're already a good person. This should make you better. Whatever it is that you have to go through should make you a better person. And in that schus, in that merit, we should all soon see the coming of the true Messiah, the building of the Holy Temple. May it happen soon, speedily in our days. Amen.